Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Model UN Showcase. Assembled here today, we have invited two of the highest ranked resolutions from all three of our high school Model UN conferences this season, two from Model UNA, two from Model UNB, and two from the Virtual General Assembly, assembled before a committee of award winners from all three conferences. We're looking forward to a great session today. And without any further ado, I will turn it over to your showcase chairs to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I will kick us off with this. My name is Hadley Brown, and I am a junior at Beach High School. I was a General Assembly President at Conference B, and I have been a part of Model UN for the past 3 years. I'll now turn it over to the next chair.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Huber, and I'm a senior at St. Cecilia. I was the General Assembly Liaison at Conference B this past year, and I've been involved with the CCE since my freshman year. And I'm so excited to hear some great debate today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Pervolescu. I am a senior at MLK, and this will be my 5th year in the CCE since 8th grade.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angelique Kimbo. I'm a senior at Hillwood High School. I got to serve as one of the GAVPs in MUN A, and this would be my 4th year with the TNCCE.
Hi everyone, my name is Apeksha Sawarkar. I'm a senior at Hume-Fogg High School. This is my 3rd year of doing Model UN, and I was a GAVP at MUN Conference A.
Thank you, chairs. I'll turn it over to our first showcase chair to start the first resolution.
Will the patrons of Resolution 21-1-15 please come forward? This is a resolution to improve water pollution and sanitation in Bangladesh's rivers. Patrons, you have 2 minutes for your introduction. You may begin whenever you are ready.
Good morning, fellow delegates. We, the delegates of Bangladesh, believe that all people need access to clean water. Water is a necessity for the human body to function, be healthy, and maintain sanitation. The underlying cause of water pollution in Bangladesh is mainly due to increased levels of arsenic, domestic waste, runoff agriculture, sewage, as well as industrial pollution. Water contamination is murdering over 43,000 innocent adults and children every year. To provide a better picture, imagine the student population of the University of Washington. Bangladesh's pollution is expected to rise to about 193 million people by 2050, growing by almost 1 million people annually. So the number of deaths due to water pollution will only increase. To prevent future deaths and keep the population of not only Bangladesh, but also India, we need to attack the issue of landfills and provide drinking water.
Bangladesh proposes this in the Brahmaputra, Ganges, and Baranga rivers. We also want to promote policies for businesses to use non-toxic and biodegradable dyes. This will also help neighboring countries to generate. The rest of our time to the chair.
And with that, the patrons have yielded 43 seconds to, I'm assuming you would like to yield that to your summation, correct?
Yes.
We will now move into technical questions, 2 minutes of technical questions. Before we do that, however, I'd like to share with you all that it will be in order today to extend pro-con debate if you so desire to, but that has to be done before the final pro round. Just putting that out there for anyone who possibly would like to do that at some point today. Bahamas, Poland, Ecuador, Libya, Guatemala, Equatorial Guinea, Rwanda. We will start there with 2 minutes.
Bahamas, do you plan to build the different water filtration plans in the same place?
Can you elaborate on the question?
you plan to build the water filtration and treatment systems, the industrial sized water filtration system in the same place?
It's going to be built in 3 different rivers. So the Brahmaputra, the Burunganga, and the Ganges River. And for 2 of the rivers, it's going to be a reverse osmosis process. And for one of them, it's going to be mechanical filtration.
Thank you.
Hostetler Poland, can you define reverse osmosis as used in Line 73?
It's a reverse osmosis. Give me one. We do not have the answer to that question.
McNulty, Ecuador, what percentage of your country's surface area is water?
We do not have the answer to that question.
Alina, Libya, what's the poverty rate of your country?
%. 30% of the country is below the poverty rate.
Wolfkill, Guatemala. For how long will the systems you hope to implement last?
We're hoping to have these systems for about 20 to 30 years. We think it'll last for a very long time. It'll last a couple centuries, but we're trying to implement them just for the first 20 to 30 years.
Dish, Equatorial Guinea. Why are 2 of your plants going to be reverse osmosis while only 1 will be mechanical filtration?
And with that, delegates, I'm so sorry, but our time.
The river, specifically the
We will now move into our first con intent speech. Will the con speaker please come forward?
Cherry Poulet, Germany, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You may begin when you are ready.
While what is occurring in Bangladesh is horrific and solutions are imperative, this proposal does not solve in the most effective and cost-efficient way. We need regulatory policies as suggested by their 1st and 4th operative clauses. However, what they propose is not harsh enough as it excludes primary polluters and is unenforceable. In their clause about regulation of the fashion industry, they would only be suggesting that the government would comply and implement these regulations. But the probability of these suggestions' success is low considering the fashion industry makes up 80% of Bangladesh's export profits, because their plan is only to expand the Bangladesh Water Act as said in line 59 of their resolution. They cannot modify already existing sections preventing their goals from occurring. In Article 2, Line 3 of the Bangladesh Water Act reads, the landowner will contain the right to use the surface water on private property, and the owner will use this under the provision of the Act. Although there is no mention of the issuance of licenses or permits in the Act, it is implicit that there will be requirement for the issuance of permits/licenses for large-scale water withdrawal by individuals and organizations beyond domestic use. Because all of the companies own the land and water that they are polluting, this Act legitimizes their right to utilize their water however they please, and no matter how they expand the Act, the companies will still sue and have legal rights over land and water. Arsenic contamination caused by floodwaters cannot be prevented by their regulation, as traces of it will still remain in the earth, and as climate change continues to worsen, floods will occur more and more frequently, augmenting arsenic's deadly contribution to water. The only comprehensive solution would not even involve UN money and resources. If instead the country used a divest and reinvest system, polluters would not only be held accountable through fining, but the money collected through those fines would also be used to build and keep up the water treatment systems mentioned in their 2nd and 3rd operative clauses. As of now, the Bangladesh Water Act does not include fines as one of its enforcement measures, and its executive committee even admits that there has been a lack of enforcement. The companies effectively paying for the treatment measures through divest and reinvest regulation would mitigate pollution, sustain Bangladesh's economy, and not take the UN's money. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
And with that, no time has been yielded to the chair. We will now move into our next pro-intent speech. Will our pro-intent speaker please step forward?
Hostetler Poland, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, my fellow delegates. Today, I would like to bring the incredible resolution the delegation of Bangladesh has written to your attention. As we know, water is essential for human survival. Some may take extra long showers or go swimming in a pool whenever it's hot outside, but we often take water for granted. However, due to the contamination of water sources in Bangladesh, many Bangladeshis don't have access to clean water and aren't able to enjoy these aforementioned luxuries. Heck, they're barely able to attain the recommended amount of water each day. This is due to the fact that many of the water sources in Bangladesh are contaminated with pollutants such as arsenic, which cannot simply be boiled out. Furthermore, Bangladesh has been subjected to many companies coming in and destroying their land through terrible waste management systems, which adds to the pollution in these water sources. Keeping these facts in mind, we need to look at this resolution under a different light. First, the water filtration systems they plan to install are absolutely incredible. They're not only efficient and effective, filtering 100 to 200 gallons of water per minute, but have unseen financial benefits as jobs can be created through the water treatment and waste management centers they plan to install as well. Furthermore, as many of the water sources are rivers such as the Ganges River and the Brahmaputra River, filtered water would be able to reach other countries that share these rivers with Bangladesh, such as India. Next, the delegation of Bangladesh not only plans to stop the effects of water pollution, but the causes as well. By implementing policies to promote natural biodegradable dyes that won't pollute the water, it will not only help the humans living in Bangladesh, but the wildlife as well, promoting biodiversity. Also, the delegation of Bangladesh plans for the future as they seek to conserve water in a sustainable way. By partnering with the United Nations to implement these policies mentioned above, they will be able to reach other countries, which adds on to the already huge significant impact of this resolution. I'd like to leave y'all with one simple statement. If you do not pass this resolution, you are denying Bangladeshis the basic human right of water, which is incredibly cruel. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
And with that, exactly 20 seconds has been yielded to the chair. We'll now move into our first con round. Do we have a con speaker on the floor? Guatemala.
Wolfkill, Guatemala, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
Please specify delegate.
Equatorial Guinea dish. So in lines 64 through 68 of your resolution, you mentioned the water filtration systems. Will the water from the systems be going towards commercial and production uses or domestic uses?
It'll be mainly for domestic uses because the Ganges and the Brahmaputra rivers are mostly used for like daily living, whether to drinking water or water to use in like home to wash the body or anything else. So mostly domestic uses is what we're trying to implement these systems.
And also, who enforces the national strategy for accelerated poverty reduction 2?
Expand on that question, please.
In your resolution, you mentioned your country's national strategy for accelerated poverty reduction 2. I was just curious who enforced that.
We do not have that information.
Thank you. I urge high ranking and yield my time to the delegate.
And with that, our time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our next and first pro round. Do we have a pro speaker on the floor? Wise.
Do the patrons yield to a possible Wise DPRK? Do the patrons yield to a possible series of neutral questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield any remaining time to a fellow delegate?
Please specify delegate.
Rwanda. So looking at the resolution in your operative clauses, maybe I'm missing it, but I'm not seeing a timeline for this plan. So what is the timeline for this plan?
Okay, so we plan to start this in January 2022, and the installation system is going to take about a year or a year and a half to perfect. Also, we're planning to have like professional workers, people who already know how to install these filtration systems to work on it.
Thank you. I yield my time to my fellow delegate.
Satyandre Kumar Rwanda, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 31 seconds.
Fellow delegates, I urge passage of this resolution. The citizens of Bangladesh deserve access to clean water. As stated in the patrons' resolution, the Ganges River, the most polluted river in the world, is the main drinking source of the country. This means a large number of Bangladesh citizens are drinking contaminated water. If this resolution is not passed, there will be catastrophic economic consequences and social consequences. This solution has been implemented in other regions before and has proven to be successful. Thus, I urge passage. I yield the rest of my time.
With that, the delegate has yielded 3 seconds and urged passage. We'll now move into our next con round. Do we have a con speaker on the floor? Bahamas.
May I address the floor?
That is your right.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
Please specify delegate.
Dish, Equatorial Guinea. My fellow delegates, I firmly believe that this resolution aims to be very good. However, it misses the mark. 97% of rural Bangladeshis get their water from tube wells, shallow tube wells that are heavily arsenic contaminated. These wells are not connected to a water network. There is no way to get the water from these systems to the people that are most heavily affected by the arsenic. Furthermore, these systems aim to provide 200 gallons per minute, and I believe there are 3 systems, as was said. That does not come near close to the 1.9 million gallons per minute that Bangladesh requires. I do not think that this resolution will be able to fully address the problem or get anywhere near it, and I yield my time.
Dish, Equatorial Guinea, wouldn't it be more effective to address the problem at the source, which would be implementing policies in your own country?
Delegate, I'm so sorry, you're out of order. Please state your intention.
Dish, Equatorial Guinea, does the delegate yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
Wouldn't it be more effective to address the problem at the source, which would be implementing policies in your own country on contamination?
And with that, our time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our next pro round, our final pro round. Do we have a pro speaker on the floor? Honduras.
Honduras, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
Please specify delegate.
Victory, Laos. So there has been a bit of concern regarding your policies and how you're going to enforce this. But I honestly think that you already specify in line 75 of your resolution. So could you please go into a bit of detail as to how the UN Alliance for Fashionable Sustainability would promote policies suggesting the use of natural dyes that are biodegradable? And how would that positively affect your country's economy?
So we want the UN to partner up. We want the UN to partner up with the Bangladeshi government and to promote quickly and like companies that use like fast fashion, that are mainly on fast fashion industries. Can you say your question one more time? Hello?
Yes. How would this positively affect your country's economy?
Okay, so majority of our exports in our country's majority of our exports has to do with the garment industry, and the way that it will positively affect our country's economy is because it would promote the use of more sustainable dyes instead of petroleum. That's basically how it positively affect our. So all of these factories, they could incorporate, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like right then and there, but.
And with that, delegate, I'm so sorry, but we are out of time for this round. We will now move into our final con round. Do we have one final con speaker on the floor? Yemen.
Do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a delegate?
Please specify delegate.
Tuvalu. So I'd like to address the one of the previous con speakers. They talked about these wells that affect more people than the rivers. Could you possibly implement these systems and stuff that you're trying to do on these wells instead of the rivers?
We're not doing well. We have had wells in the country before, and that was a problem because the arsenic contaminated it. So we're not implementing wells, we're implementing reverse osmosis. So in the rivers, so all the contaminants will go through a membrane and leave clean water for the citizens of Bangladesh.
Could this help with the, like, could this same reverse osmosis could be put in the wells, or did it just not work that way?
We can put them in the wells, but we want a more, we want an answer where it can reach more people and be more like
Slowly
there
they
for
start incorporating more. And also the Ganges River is also like a sacred river, and it runs through Bangladesh. And so earlier the fellow Khan said that in the Khan speech he said that, in the Khan round he said that 97% of people use this, but like the Ganges River is used by like many Bangladesh citizens for both cultural reasons and for domestic reasons, and so which is why we would rather implement it on the rivers rather than wells.
And with that,
I yield the remainder of my time. Okay.
perfect. And with that, no time has been yielded to the chair. We'll now move into 1 minute and 43 seconds of the patron summation. Patrons, you may begin whenever you're ready.
To conclude, we, the delegates of Bangladesh, ask for your support in resolution and help increase water sanitation and decrease side effects of pollution, especially in water to the thirst. Below 40% of people have properly sanitized water. This plan would also help decrease the tensions between India and Bangladesh who have conflicts with water sources, specifically the Ganges River. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
And with that, 1 minute and 20 seconds has been yielded to the chair. We will now move into voting procedure. All of those in favor? Yes. All of those opposed? No. And any and all abstentions. We will take the next 5 or 6 seconds to vote. One more time. All those in favor, please press yes. All those opposed, please press no. I'm having a little bit of trouble catching. Is anyone else, Tyler or Elise, are you watching these? I apologize.
Yes. Let's see. Have your final votes in the next 3 seconds, and then we'll record that tally. 3, 2, 1. Okay. It looks like the final numbers are 20 in favor, 23 opposed, and 1 abstention. All right, with a final vote of 20 in favor, 23 against, and 1 abstention, this resolution fails to advance. Everyone can rescind their votes now. Hedley, thank you for chairing. I know Hedley has to run before the end of our showcase today, so if everyone could use your applause emoji to just thank Hedley for being here today, since we won't get a chance to thank her at the end.
Y'all are awesome. Keep it up. So good to see all of you. Good luck today.
Now we'll turn it over to our next showcase chair.
Yeah, hi guys. Will the delegates of YGA 21-2-5, delegation from Rwanda, please get ready for your introductory speech. You will have 2 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and greetings to our fellow delegates. Our names are Rohan Killar, Kaushik Satyendra Kumar, Vinod Misra, and Anela Sharma.
We are here today to address the dire situation for the future growth of the economy due to a lack of the infrastructure in the information communication technology sector in Rwanda. Investing into the ICT sector could result in an annual growth of 7% of the GDP. And when similar actions were taken into Nigeria, it produced a market that generated $2 billion.
The Rwandan government understands the importance of the ICT sector from its actions. Rwanda followed the Vision 20 project, which attempted to make Rwanda a predominant player in the ICT sector. However, during phase 3 of the initiative, Rwanda implemented a $180 per laptop strategy and were unable to afford the computers, which played a major role in ending the project due to a lack of public support. Furthermore, Rwanda only spends $50,000 into their ICT sector annually and provides little growth into their infrastructure. COVID-19 has also slowed down attempts to improve the ICT infrastructure and has redirected it towards COVID relief programs. Hence, this issue must be addressed immediately.
Rwanda calls upon the United Nations Office for Project Services to provide $4.8 million to invest into the ICT infrastructure. $3.5 million will be spent on microcomputers, thereby providing 45,000 computers to potential candidates, and $1.3 million will help IT companies to invest funds for research and development, which would thereby expand the work capacity and improve the ICT sector's infrastructure. Furthermore, it will encourage FDI or foreign domestic investment into Rwanda's ICT sector, which is crucial because this is from tech companies and it will outsource work to new professionals in Rwanda, which would therefore allow some investments to be made towards the infrastructure because of current actions to improve it. Hence, the economy of Rwanda will be expanded in terms of the ICT sector.
Today, we ask the UN to invest for a better future filled with economic growth and high levels of development in Rwanda. We urge high passage of this bill and yield the remainder of our time to the summation.
And with that, the patrons have yielded 8 seconds to their summation. We will now move into 2 minutes of technical questions. Do I have any technical questions on the floor? Wolfkill, Meta, Kushimanchi, Pradeep, Hill, Teles Oriana, Alino, and then we'll go from there.
So Guatemala, referencing line 11 of your resolution, could you just expound upon some of the impacts of infrastructure in Rwanda specifically?
So investing into the ICT sector would result in improving communication and computer in the IT business in the region, which will improve many more people getting jobs in the IT sector. And these people working for companies could help benefit Rwanda in general because it expands technologies to more rural parts of Rwanda.
Meta San Marino, what is the GDP of Rwanda and what percentage of the GDP is made up of infrastructure?
So the GDP of Rwanda is 20.33 billion, and the GDP, we do not have a certain percentage, but it makes up a small percentage right now. But this, if our resolution aims to increase this percentage, which will lead to overall benefits for Rwanda.
Kusumanchi, South Sudan, what percentage of your population is living below the poverty line?
So
Pradeep, Thailand, how will you distribute the, I believe you said 45,000 laptops across the people across Rwanda?
This will be given to STEM graduates who have some experience working with these computers, and that way they're able to actually use them to have create jobs for themselves.
Hill, Panama, what is Rwanda's form of currency?
The Rwandan franc.
Teo Soriano, Honduras, how heavily is Rwanda depending on CTI services or internet services, better stated?
I'm sorry, delegates, the time for this technical round has elapsed. We will now move into our pro intent speaker, Kushimanchi.
Kusumanchi, South Sudan, may I address the floor?
That is your right, you have 2 minutes.
Fellow delegates, Rwanda experiences many economical issues, including the pre-existent poor infrastructure. I would like to remind everyone of the United Nations' 9th goal for sustainable development, which recognizes the economic forces that generate employment and income by introducing and implementing new technologies, international trade, and enabling the efficient use of resources. Throughout the years of civilization, infrastructure has proven to play an essential role in improving a country's economy. By improving the infrastructure, it boosts the productivity of private capital and labor, which would bolster the country's GDP. Right now, the world's experiencing an era of digital transformation, and we must make sure every individual in the world has access to technologies that influence many factors in today's world. Over the years, technology has proven to improve the current state of one's being. The resolution of this issue, it being implemented in Rwanda, would be a motivating factor for other surrounding countries to use this resolution since it does not require much money and the economy is similar, making the solution versatile. The delegation of Rwanda is not only requesting fiscal support, but also action from the UN, which would catalyze the resolution of this issue. With the passage of this resolution, it would cause several beneficial impacts for Rwanda, including economical, environmental, and social benefits. Therefore, the solution is optimal and affects other nations, not only the delegation of Rwanda. Delegates, I strongly urge you to consider these points in mind when voting for the passage of this resolution. The solution would be a step towards achieving the UN's goal of sustainable development. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time to the patron summation.
And with that, 27 seconds has been yielded. I'm sorry, Tyler, can they yield to the patron summation?
That is acceptable in a pro-intent speech. So
And
we
with
can try to
that,
solicit a con speaker now.
27 seconds has been yielded to patron summation. My apologies. The con intent speech is up for grabs. So just a reminder, if you cannot volunteer for another intent speech, if you've already spoken as well, you cannot volunteer for this one too. Civic Clerk, Kiribati.
Let me just lower my hand. All right, CDKR Kiribati, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 2 minutes.
All right, I'll start now. I think we should not pass this resolution for a few central reasons. Namely, just 6 days ago, the World Bank provided $100 million to help digital infrastructure in Rwanda. Until they can prove to you why they need $5 million, despite the fact that the country has already received 20 times that sum, you should feel very uncomfortable passing this resolution because either A, they already received the money and there's no reason for the UN to give them more at the point where the problem is already being solved, or B, if they try to claim this 100 million wasn't enough or wouldn't be sufficient, there's no reason to think that pumping in another 5 million will be enough or will be sufficient insofar as they have already received 20 times their requested sum. But even then, building digital infrastructure doesn't solve the root causes of the poverty in Rwanda. Groups such as the Borgen Project agree that Rwanda's poverty has inherently been incited as the lasting effect of the devastating 1994 genocide, which displaced much of the population, killing hundreds of thousands and ravaged the actual infrastructure. At the point where the actual infrastructure is what is holding back much of the population of Rwanda, building a bunch of cell phone towers will change nothing. This is held true by the fact that only 31.4% of Rwanda's population has internet access. And although they might say digital infrastructure would improve this, understand that if someone is already in poverty, building more cell phone towers and digital infrastructure for jobs won't change the fact that so many Rwandans live under $2 a day and just straight up don't have the money or education for it. And so far as there are so many people in rural communities who don't have the education to be these STEM graduates that'll get computers or who don't have the money to actually access this digital infrastructure, giving them $5 million won't affect the vast majority of the population, and the GDP growth they talk about won't really actually benefit the poverty. Overall, since $100 million is already being spent specifically on digital infrastructure in Rwanda right now, and spending more money on digital infrastructure doesn't even directly combat poverty in Rwanda, although this is an issue we must address, this resolution is just not the way to do it, which is why I urge not passing.
And with that, the time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our first con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Wandem.
Wandem, DRC. Does the patron yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please specify delegate.
Hill. So could you explain why the previous amount given to Rwanda was insufficient?
It was not insufficient. It was invested into the wrong area. It was $100 million was invested into the Vision 20 project. It failed to achieve its goal because it invested a majority of that money to developing computers to sell to the public for $180. And that was during 2013. However, due to modern technology, Raspberry Pis become prevalent and is an efficient technology that could be utilized. With $5 million investing into it could significantly help the Rwandan economy.
Thank you. And could you explain your plan on increasing the access of digital infrastructure?
So Rwanda already has a great telecommunications. It has like Wi-Fi towers and everything built. It's just that there's no computers or smart devices utilizing this. We are buying about 445,000 computers. $35 will be spent on buying the Raspberry Pi. An additional, the remainder of that will be the additional $35 will be spent on peripherals and a cube monitor. And these will be provided around 45,000 units to around these people so they could use them, STEM graduates, so they can use them to partake in IT jobs.
I yield the remainder of my time. Hello, Panama. Do the patrons yield to the possible series of questions?
They do so yield, but the time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our first pro round. Do I have a pro speaker on the floor? Gigme.
Jigme, Central African Republic. To the patron, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
It's also your right. Please specify a delegate.
Tuvalu. Okay, so in the previous con-intent speech, they mentioned $100 million worth of funding. However, this is not the same type of funding that is being provided in this resolution, because the $100 million is not strictly humanitarian funding. It is a loan that needs to be repaid, as opposed to this resolution, which provides $5 million. And because the 100 million is a loan, they are incentivized to invest this into areas that will generate profit more so than those who need it in the rural areas. And this is why we need these $5 million. And this will set a precedent by passing a UN resolution, which will allow this to be implemented in other countries. I yield my time.
Nakati Tuvalu, sorry, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 13 seconds.
So just to briefly address the con speaker that said it doesn't solve people with little education. However, they mentioned in line, there will be spillover effects of the 7% GDP growth that mean that even if these people are not directly benefiting, they will benefit from
I'm sorry, delegate, the time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our second con round. Do I have a con speaker? Let's go with Meta.
Meta San Marino, did the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please specify a delegate.
Host letter. So in line 20, can you please elaborate on collaborating and contributing the implementations of new infrastructures to enhance the economy?
So we're talking about stakeholders, which we're talking about FDI, foreign domestic investment. So if the United Nations invests into the ICT sector predominantly the IT sector, stakeholders from other parts of the world would invest into Rwanda to outsource jobs, improving the FDI in the region. And Rwanda could benefit around $130 million of FDI investments, which could significantly improve its economy.
And then given that nearly 63% of people in Africa do not have internet access and Rwanda only has internet access of around 29%, how will this affect rural citizens that cannot afford schooling to get proper degrees?
So this is actually being implemented in Rwanda's capital. once people get jobs in these capital, people will go to companies, and some of these companies will help provide better technologies to Rwanda, and it also boosts the economy by 15% in the GDP.
I'm sorry, delegates, the time for this round has elapsed. We do have a motion on the floor. Please rise and state your motion.
McNulty, Ecuador, motion to extend pro-con debate by 1 round.
That motion is in order. If you are in favor for this motion, click yes. If you are against, press no. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds for that to happen. Please have your votes in by 3, 2, 1. With a vote of 29 for, 12 against, this motion does pass. We will now extend pro-con debate by 1 round. And if you could do me a favor and just lower your reactions, that would be great. We will move into our second pro round. Do I have a pro speaker? Kaplan?
Kaplan, DPRK, may I address the floor and then yield remaining time to a fellow delegate?
That's both of your rights. Please specify a delegate.
Peru. Thank you, Chair. I would like to emphasize the Sustainable Development Goal by the UN 17.8 to operationalize the technological improvements of lesser developed countries by 2017 in enhancing technologies within specific scientific, banking, and technological spheres. There's also Goal 9.b within Sustainable Development Goals to support domestic technology development, research, and innovation in developing countries. This resolution will address such goals outlined as they were supposed to be implemented. Prior to this, there was a goal by 2017. This is crucial to pass. The resolution addressed such outlined goals, also providing precedent for fellow countries to follow suit. Yes, there has just been a large sum of money put into the economy from the World Bank, yet emphasizing a point from Give Me Central African Republic, there's a great incentive to put the funding into an exponentially increasing research with the aid of modern technological efforts. The infrastructure has the ability to reach thousands of citizens, improving lives and providing jobs in the process, increasing economic outlook. An annual growth of 7.7% of GDP is incredible, and with $5 billion being invested has little risk yet great economic output. Putting this money into research and development will have great potential for exponential.
I'm sorry, delegates, the time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our third con round. Do I have a con speaker? Let's go with Acre.
Do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
I'm sorry, delegate, you need to say your last name.
Oh, yeah. Acker, Yemen, did the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a delegate?
That is right. Please specify a delegate.
Ecuador. So this infrastructure bill, it presents a good solution, but I feel like, would it be better to focus on the human rights issues that stand in Rwanda?
Currently, Rwanda's human rights issues have actually been significantly getting better over the course of the years after the genocide. It's increased to 0.65%, 0.65 on the scale, and we feel like there's no need for the United Nations to help bolster the improved human rights index, because it's slowly going upwards, and the UN is not standing for improving the human rights index directly. And we feel like improving the economy is more of a major problem in Rwanda.
I yield the remainder of my time to my fellow delegate.
McNulty, Ecuador, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 10 seconds.
I believe that this solution isn't the best solution because the sector of internet has already been growing in Rwanda substantially without outside intervention. And it also doesn't get to the fact that 24.07% of the country's industry is agriculture. And there's also
I'm sorry, delegate, the time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our third and final pro round. Do I have a pro speaker? Vale.
Vale, Peru, do the patrons yield to a series of possible questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
All right, please specify a delegate.
Mikati, Tuvalu. So you said these computers would be going to people in the STEM field within Rwanda, correct?
Yes.
And what percentage of your population would you say is going into that field or projected to be in that field or is already in it?
So currently there's 50,000 graduates that have a degree in STEM just in the capital city of Rwanda alone. And there's an expected about 30% more graduates actually taking up engineering. And by investing into getting more computers to the public, more of these Rwandan citizens would like to partake in more IT or engineering degrees, which would further encourage the IT sector in Rwanda.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Makati, Tuvalu, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
To respond to a previous speaker that said the internet sector is already growing, while it's true that the sector is already growing, Rwanda severely lacks the digital infrastructure to make this growth equitable. By providing laptops to people going into the field of STEM, this makes it the people.
I'm sorry, delegates, the time for this round has elapsed. We will now move into our fourth and final con round. Do I have a con speaker? Alino.
Do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please specify a delegate.
Cherry Poulet, Germany. Patrons, you say that these laptops and computers will be distributed to people, tech graduates. However, how do you plan on increasing education and increasing those tech graduates so that not only the capital, like you mentioned previously, but the rural parts of the country as well are represented and are actually addressed and helped?
So I'd like to restate, while we invest into this, it will increase foreign domestic income and encourage more people to partake in the IT sector, because we can see that the Rwandan government is actually investing into there. And this would lead other regions besides the capital city of Rwanda to further invest into this. And FDI could further benefit by building colleges and other resources that could help more people access technology.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Cherry Poulet, Germany, did the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield. You have 11 seconds.
You say in line 9 of your resolution that improving infrastructure helps the environment, but how can it do so if ICT has contributed 1.3 gigatons of greenhouse gases to climate change?
So there's actually organizations in Rwanda, like the UN Organization for Environmental, like to help the environment.
I'm sorry, delegates, the time for this round has elapsed. That concludes pro-con debate, and now we will move into 1 minute and 35 seconds of patron summation. Patrons, please begin when you're ready.
In summation, Rwanda has a poor infrastructure in terms of its ICT infrastructure. By investing into the ICT sector, Rwanda would grow socially and economically, especially because it could result in an annual growth of 7% of GDP. Similar actions with the ICT sector have been taken in Lagos, Namibia, and Nigeria, in Nigeria especially, it resulted in a $2 billion market. Previous attempts like Vision 20 were not as effective, and COVID-19 has not eased the situation. The $4.8 million that we asked for will mainly be used for the ICT sector, but approximately $1 million will be used to invest in IT companies in Rwanda, and this will contribute to the expansion of the work capacity and improve the research development, which would spur the ICT sector's growth overall. The most important thing to take away, delegates, is that this will promote foreign domestic investment, or FDI, which will significantly improve the state of the economy overall in Rwanda. Now moving on to address the things said in con rounds. So digital infrastructure is different, as well as one of the delegates pointed out. The $100 million dollars given is a loan, and it's not given to Rwanda. It's meant to be paid back. This is completely different, and by providing the $5 million, we could set a precedent for other countries as well. The ICT sector is going to largely benefit the government and the economy of Rwanda overall, rather than improving the agriculture industry. That is not the main focus, and the ICT infrastructure with the United Nations contributions will bolster substantially. For these reasons, I urge the passage of this bill, and I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
And with that, 5 seconds has been yielded to the chair. We'll now move into voting procedure. If you're in favor for this resolution, press yes. Against, press no. And if you're abstaining, press the slow down button. Please have your votes in within the next 5 seconds. With a vote of 25 for, 15 against, and 1 abstention, this resolution does pass. Congratulations.
We'll now be moving into the Virtual General Assembly Bill 21-1-1 of the patrons of Niger, a resolution to provide better education in the country of Niger.
Hello, fellow delegates. The Niger literacy rate is a devastating 35%, while the United States literacy rate is an outstanding 95%. The fact that there's such a large difference in the literacy rates between these two countries brings up an issue that not many people think about. The country of Niger is ranked 187th out of 187 countries in the entire world. This just shows that Niger needs help, and I believe the United Nations can help support this cause. The people in this country do not have a chance to have a good future or a chance to thrive in this world like most of us do today. These statistics and facts show you how much of an educational deficit this country is at. I yield the rest of my time to summation. Thank you.
With that, the delegates have yielded 1 minute and 20 seconds to their summation. We'll now be going into technical questions. Do I have any technical questions on the floor? Saithya Narendra Kumar, Hostler, Kaplan, Pradeep, Kushamanchi, Wolfkill, McNulty, Hill, Woodem, Olino.
Satyendra Kumar, Rwanda. What is the debt to GDP ratio in your country?
The GDP is 13.68 billion, while the number one Finland has a 271.1 billion GDP, and our GDP per capita is $2,097.19 US dollars.
Thank you.
Settler Poland. What percent of the adults in Niger are educated?
The 65% of them are illiterate.
Thank you.
Kaplan, DPRK, approximately how many students can 560 schools reach?
The amount of people they can reach is 1.5 million, which is about 10% of the currently uneducated students, and this will increase yearly.
Deep Thailand, my question's already been answered.
Kusamanchi, South Sudan. Has Niger faced its education issue before?
Yes, only in 2019, the Niger Learning Improvement for Results in Education LIAR project, and it says it will only focus on regions of the country that are fragile and that will scale up. This is different from our resolution because we are not only focusing on fragile parts of Niger, but we are focusing as a whole.
Wolfkill, Guatemala. Will the schools be dispersed equally across Niger?
Yes, they will be dispersed in the entire country of Niger, and this will happen yearly, so the amount of schools will increase every year.
McNulty, Ecuador, what language will the schools teach in?
They will teach in French, which is the national language of Niger.
Hill, Panama, what percent of the UN's budget are you asking for?
We do not have that at this time.
Wandum, DRC, what's the goal number of students per school?
A number of students per school, there will be 60 students per class.
Unfortunately, delegates, we have run out of time for technical questions. We'll now be moving into a con-intense speech. Salman?
Salman, Pakistan, may I address the floor?
That is your right, delegate. You're entitled to 2 minutes.
I solemnly agree that this resolution has good intentions. For as a delegate of a fellow country with a declining education, I can empathize with the delegation of Niger on this growing issue of kids not even being educated. How is our world supposed to advance with people that can't even read, people that don't know basic geography, or people that don't know the names of body parts around their own body? I completely agree that their education needs to be improved. for they're at the bare bottom of country rankings in respect to educational standards. However, being the worst country in terms of a problem also means that you need the best solution in terms of that same problem. And this is just not cutting it. With that said, I have one major concern. In their resolution, they indicate that they have about 3,200 schools in Niger, but these schools can only accommodate a measly 480,000 students. That's the real problem. Their schools are of low quality. But instead of focusing on their current resources and their current schools and improving the quality of these current schools and addressing the reasons why each school can only accommodate an average of 150 students, the delegation of Niger wants to build more schools. Everyone can acknowledge that Niger has a major education problem. However, problems aren't solved by acknowledging them and simply praising their significance. Problems are solved by providing efficient solutions. Sure, this problem will get solved with these measures, but it could be more easily solved with different measures. This is an extremely inefficient and extremely counterintuitive solution to quite a common problem in today's world. The UN has a lot of problems to deal with, and that's why each problem should be dealt with as efficiently as possible, with the result of solving the problem completely and saving the most amount of money. Why not renovate the current standing schools? Why not provide them with more resources? But no, the delegation wants to waste money on more schools. The number of schools is not the problem. The problem is that their current schools are of low quality. The UN would be wasting money, workers, resources, land, and time by building more schools. Niger has a land area of 1.3 million kilometers squared, with 3,000 total schools. Now, we want to forget all those schools, forget all their students, and instead we want to build only 560 more schools. How are 560 schools supposed to cover a land area of 1.3 kilometers squared with a lack of 1.3 million kilometers squared, my bad. With a lack of transportation resources, kids have to walk to schools every day. And by my calculations, a kid will have to walk 34.3 kilometers every day to school. The average
Unfortunately,
child.
the time for this con-intent speech has elapsed. We'll now be moving into our pro-intent speaker. You may begin when you're ready.
Vale, Peru. For so many of us, education is a
Delegate, you are out of order.
My bad. What do you want me to do? I'm sorry.
You state your last name, country, and may address the floor.
Vale, Peru. May I address the floor?
That is your right. You are entitled to 2 minutes.
For so many of us, education is a constant fact of life. Our lives revolve around our schools, and we're at liberty to choose whatever career we desire. And yet, we take it all for granted, complaining about our workloads and even something as frivolous as school start times. In Niger, however, these opportunities are incredibly rare, and so many children are in desperate need of schooling. Education should be a right for all children, and in a country of 13 million, it should have more than 482,000 students across the entire thing. Education should never be a privilege only able to be had by the wealthy and powerful. Education is something that we all deserve, and a proper, safe schooling environment is something that all these children are entitled to. This bill is a large and affordable step towards creating a better world for all children, and I yield the remainder of my time to patron summation.
With that, the delegate has yielded another 1 minute and 20 seconds to the patron summation. We'll now be going into con-pro debate. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Strickland.
Strickland, Rwanda. Do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
May I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify delegate.
Bahamas. What percentage or amount of the $12.7 million will be put towards paying the teachers?
We have in our resolution, it says that $3 million US dollars annual will be used for the educational staffing of Niger, of schools in Niger, which is, we will bring 22,400 teachers in for these schools, and they will be paid $38,839 yearly, but they won't be paid in US dollars. They will be paid in West African CFA, which $1 US is $580.67 for one West African CFA.
And then what is the cost of living in Niger?
The cost of living is extremely cheap in Niger for West African CFA currency. It is an average of 50,000 CFA for one house, and that's a good house in Niger.
And then how would these children get to these schools?
We would be placing these schools strategically in areas that are closer to people who may not be able to have transportation. Like in the con intent speech, it said that these kids need transportation and that these kids will be stuck in a,
Unfortunately, delegates, the time for this con round has elapsed. We'll now be moving into our first pro round. Wise.
Wise DPRK, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield any remaining time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify delegate.
Central African Republic. So as you mentioned before, you're building these new schools with this resolution. So with the current schools that you have in your country, are these schools at close to max capacity?
Could you restate your question? Sorry.
Yes. So with this resolution, you'll be building new schools across Niger. So are the current schools that you have, are they close to max capacity?
Actually, they are over max capacity.
Okay, thank you. I yield my time.
Turn off your phone.
Jigme, Central African Republic. May I address the floor?
That is your right, delegate. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, so in the previous con intent speech, the delegate from Pakistan stated that the main problem in Rwanda is that the schools are not being utilized properly and not that there aren't enough schools. But this is exactly backward. As the delegation has stated, the schools already are over max capacity. And there are several areas throughout Rwanda where there are no schools. So the people there don't have access to education. That's the main problem. People don't have access to education in many areas because there's not a school in that area. This resolution solves that problem by building more schools, which is exactly the type of solution that is needed so that these rural areas can have access to education.
Unfortunately, delegate, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now be moving into our second con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Misra.
Misra, Rwanda, may I address the floor and yield the remainder of my time to fellow delegate?
Both of those are your rights. Please specify delegate.
McNulty, Ecuador. Fellow delegates, as another fellow delegate said, specifically Salman of Pakistan said, I believe he addressed this perfectly. This is a pressing issue and it needs to be addressed. And because Niger faces because this is really crucial to Niger for the future, it needs to have the best solution possible. Quite frankly, this does not account for the ideal distribution of schools. It does not account for the salaries of the teachers, the construction workers, and the building of schools. It does not account for realistically how the children will get to and from school. And I believe I'm circling on one particular term, and that is infrastructure and planning. This is not the optimal solution to address this problem. It will not set a precedent for other countries nearby. There are much better ways especially regarding infrastructure, as to how the solution can actually be implemented and how a solution can actually work in the best way possible. Quite simply, this is not the best solution to address this problem. And with that, I yield the remainder of my time to the delegate.
McNulty, Ecuador, may I address the floor?
That is your right, delegate. You have 10 seconds.
Well, there are 11 official languages in this country. They only intend to speak the third most popular French, which is only spoken by 2.5 million people, when 14.5 million speak Hausa. This is promoting Eurocentric ideals of intelligence and ignoring cultural significance. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
With that, the delegate has yielded time to the chair. Before we go into the next pro round, I see that we are very active on this resolution. I will accept a motion to extend pro-con debate if y'all want. Motion from Salman.
Salman, Pakistan, motion to extend pro-con debate by 1 round.
That motion is in order. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Do I have any objections? We'll now be going into voting procedure on the motion. If you would like the motion, press yes, press the check mark. If not, press no. On 3, I will be tallying up the votes. 1, 2, 3. With a vote of 36 for, 3 against, this motion does pass and we'll be extending pro-con debate. We'll now be moving into our second to last pro round. Do I have a pro speaker on the floor? Kaplan.
Kaplan, DPRK, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield any remaining time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify delegate.
Guatemala. With an additional 1.5 million students newly educated, there's great demand for jobs within Niger to fill such increase in educated people and increased prospective workers, correct?
Correct. Not only are their jobs being taken away and companies being destroyed because there's not enough educated people in order to run these companies, not only would this help educationally in Niger, but it would help economically in Niger as well.
So keeping the current schools without any addition would not fill these job demands, correct?
Correct.
With girls, over half of them not attending schools between the ages of 5 through 17, will they be highly encouraged to attend such schools?
They will be highly encouraged because according to this, 52.7% of girls ages 5 through 17 have not and do not attend school in Niger. So they would be highly recommended to go to school because of this extreme percentage that they're not going to school.
And will there be equal opportunities for girls within the workforce?
Yes, there will. And there already has been, actually.
And lastly, with an increase in education, do you perceive increased innovation to follow, specifically in scientific developments?
Yes, we do, because
Unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now be going into our second to last con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Kouloubridis?
Lee Kouloubridis, Republic of Benin. May I address the floor and yield my time to fellow delegate?
Both of those are your right. Please specify delegate.
McNuddy. Niger. Do you remember on April 6, 2020, that the World Bank Board of Directors approved a $140 million financing plan to improve teaching, learning, and education in your country? Are you also aware that the plan failed to achieve its goals? Why come back asking for $12 million? Why ask a year and a half later for less money? $140 million did not fix Niger's education. $12 million will not fix Niger's education. Fellow delegates, the previous passage of this resolution failed. The new resolution does not address any of the previous issues. I urge failure and yield my time to the fellow delegate.
McNulty, Ecuador, may I address the floor?
That is your right, delegate. You have 15 seconds.
If 55.4% of this nation speaks a different language that is not French, why are we not educating them in this? If this is the language that is mainly used for trade, why are we not meeting them where they're at and trying to teach them in a language that is foreign to them and that they may not understand as well and may not be as applicable to the job market? I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
With that, the delegate has yielded 2 seconds to the chair. We'll now be going into our final pro round. Do I have a pro speaker on the floor? Dish.
Dish, Equatorial Guinea, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
May I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate.
That is also your right. Please specify delegate.
Wolfkill. So seeing as how the education rates in this country are extremely low, and as a previous, and I'd like to also address what a previous speaker said on them not addressing the correct issue. They are filling up these schools with as many kids as possible, and they do plan on placing the schools that are to be built in places that are relative to communities. So this is the best possible solution to an awful situation, and it will give many kids in Niger a really bright future. I yield the rest of my time to fellow delegate.
Wolfkill, Guatemala, may I address the floor?
That is your right, delegate. You have 16 seconds.
Delegates, quality education is the only thing that keeps our society afloat. This might not be the best solution, but it's the solution we have now, and any progress is better than no progress at all. I urge passage and yield my time to the chair.
With that, the delegate has yielded 2 seconds to the chair. We'll now be going into our final con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Hostler.
Hostetler, Poland. Do the delegates yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
May I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify delegate.
Victory Laos. In many sub-Saharan countries, women are expected to take care of the homes and like farm and just basically do all that stuff. How will you encourage women who are subjected to social standards to go to school?
Not only will this over time increase women to go to school, because this will add more jobs. This will add more jobs, which means the women won't have to work at home. And these people that are going to school and becoming educated can go do jobs and get more money for their family. So not only do they have to stay at home and do everything and farm, they can go have a real job other than farming.
How will you encourage them initially, though?
We will encourage them. I don't have the answer at that time.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Victory, Laos, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield. They'll give you 14 seconds.
So about how much of your population of 13 million people are school-age children?
The percentage or the number?
Either.
The amount is 69%.
Okay, so if you already have about 3,000 schools and that doesn't even do close to one, that doesn't even help about 1 million kids, how will adding only 506 schools be enough?
This will be done yearly, so this is not a short-term goal.
Fortunately, the time for this last round has elapsed. We'll now be going into the patron summation. Patrons, y'all have 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Motion.
Motion from who? Salman?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Salman Bagasan, seeing that the floor is very hot, is it in order to extend pro-con debate by yet another round?
So unfortunately, that motion is not in order since we just finished our last round.
Okay.
For future reference, I think it's Tyler, it's before the last pro round, correct?
That's correct. Whatever the current last pro round scheduled is, the motion to extend pro-con debate must be made before that.
Sorry about that, delegate. But yes, you may move to summation in 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Hello, fellow delegates. I hope now that you have recognized and realized these facts and the things these people are going through, I hope you will help support Niger and the people that live there. With the money we hope to receive yearly, we can increase the children graduation rate, not in 1 year, but in many years, and help these kids have a better life and a better chance to thrive. We'll be able to build more schools, give more supplies, hire more teachers, and get more kids through school. It saddens us to see how people in Niger don't know the basic necessities in life like reading and writing. I hope that we receive the money to help these children. And to go on to one of the con debates, they talked about how one people in April gave $140 million. And according to www.worldbank.org, it says the Niger Learning Improvement for Results in Education LIAR project will only focus on vulnerable and fragile regions of the country and scale up. This is different from our resolution because we are not only focusing on the fragile parts of Niger, and while our resolution will focus on the country of Niger as a whole. Thank you, and I yield my time to the chair.
With that, the delegates have yielded 2 minutes and 40 seconds to the chair. We'll now be going into voting procedures. On 3, everybody place their vote in. 1, 2, 3. On 3, I will be tallying up the votes. 1, 2, 3. With a tally of 24, 22 against, this bill does fail.
Will the patrons of resolution Blue GA 21-9-14 please prepare for their introduction? Delegates, you have 2 minutes. You may begin when you're ready. is
One
Honduras.
second, please. I believe we're having a technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
All good. We can take a pause for a minute or so while we wait and see if we can get that audio issue worked out.
He's having a little trouble presenting, so I'll just cover for him real quick. Sorry about that.
All good. You all may begin.
Am I going
whenever
to start?
ready.
Okay. Be careful. Drug selling teens stand by the corner of the street when the kids play soccer. This is one of the warnings Nadia received when she wondered why her son came home late every night. Nadia had chosen to dismiss these warnings until one evening, her son erupted into their home by breaking a window. His body was marred with blood and bruises, half naked and crying inconsolably. Noel, barely 12 years old, had been a victim of recruitment into an organized crime group that had beaten and raped him for over 2 years. If we see you around here again, we'll murder you like the dog you are, cried the local gang leader of Nadia's village. Ever since, Nadia and her family have taken refuge in a small room of a nearby family, refusing to come out in public, fearing retaliation from organized crime members. Now, Noel is not the only youth to suffer from organized crime. Around 10,000 organized crime members in the country of 2018, Honduras has become one of the most violent countries in the world. Even schools are left defenseless to new organized crime units. From 2009 to 2014, as many as 83 teachers were assassinated by organized crime members. When combined with the ongoing pandemic, over 700,000 students in Honduras dropped out of school in 2020 alone. We, the delegation of Honduras, have decided that this can no longer stand. That is why our delegation seeks to increase the size of counter-organized crime instructors and centers in our country. However, we can't do this alone. Our plan invites the General Assembly to raise a volunteer instructional force of 10,000 in order to capacitate as many 200,000 new youth counselors who will be distributed amongst 36 new community centers around the country. We also invite the nations of Central America to take part in the San Pedro Convention, which will draft and ratify new counter-organized crime standards for Central America, as well as monitoring the development of organized crime in our region. We yield the remainder of our time to summation.
And with that, the delegates have yielded 11 seconds to their summation. We'll now move into 2 minutes of technical questions. Do we have any technical questions? Vale, Peru, Kaplan, DPRK, Acker, Hill, Misra, Wolfkill, and we'll go from there.
Bill, Peru, do the patrons yield to a series of possible questions?
Delegates, since it is technical questions, you don't have to state your intent, so you can just ask the question.
Do you have a record for the murder rate in Honduras?
Yes, as many as 33 young people die each day due to gang violence in Honduras.
Thank you.
Kaplan, DPRK, have there been any past initiatives to resolve violent gang efforts within schools themselves? And if so, what were their outcomes?
Very great question. So the initiative GREAT, it was actually modeled from an initiative taken in the United States, especially in the Los Angeles, California area. And it was essentially the fact that the government was bringing in armed guards to talk about not getting into organized crime units, what were the results. And unfortunately, unlike in the United States, we haven't seen the results that we'd like to see. If anything, it's gone up, and we think our initiative is going to solve it.
Acker, Yemen, my question has already been answered.
Hill, Panama, these volunteers will not be paid, correct? The 10,000 volunteers.
So correct, but they will have all of their needs taken care of by our budget.
Mr. Rwanda, can you break down exactly how this plan will be implemented, or the timeline of how this plan will be implemented?
Very good question. I'm glad you asked that. So how this plan will be implemented, will be that these volunteers will be sent to the most needy areas, specifically San Pedro Sula in the Department of Cortes, Department of Olancho, and the other rural departments of the country. They will be sent into villages where they will be there for exactly a year, training new people from the community that are willing to serve as youth counselors. After they're done, as soon as we have centers ready, we will get these new youth counselors.
I'm sorry, delegates, time for technical questions has elapsed. We'll now move into the pro intent speech that is on the floor?
Satyandre Kumar, Rwanda. May I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 2 minutes.
Fellow delegates, I urge passage of this resolution. First and foremost, I would like to bring attention to the dire situation in Honduras correlating to violent actions that have led to catastrophic consequences, such as teachers being murdered, as stated in line 83 of the Patrons Resolution, which is an absolutely unacceptable action. Additionally, in the technical questions round, it was stated that large numbers of people are dying on a day-to-day basis. Without passage of this resolution, more people will keep dying and would impact the country by lowering its population and economic activity. The children of Honduras are being denied a basic necessity and are resorting to violent actions instead. This would negate the United Nations' purpose not to act. This should be in the best interest of you delegates to act. The situation in Honduras has escalated due to higher crime rates because of the current pandemic that is correlated to depression and other mental health consequences. However, this solution could greatly change because this solution is extremely beneficial. The solution that the delegation of Honduras proposes has been implemented in Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula. The solution has brought huge success to the cities and has lowered crime rates and benefited the economy. Thus, this solution is certain to have beneficial consequences. This solution will mitigate the current situation in Honduras and will ensure that a successful future is built. This resolution should be in the best interest of you to maintain peace, save thousands of lives, and ensure that the country of Honduras has a successful future economically and politically. Thank you for your time and attention. I yield the rest of my time to the patron summation.
And with that, the delegate has yielded 30 seconds to the patron summation. I will now entertain any potential con intent speeches. Please raise your hand. So are all of you three, like Acker, Wise, and Vale, are you guys all open to a con intent speech? Okay. Okay, I guess we'll go with Wise if you're raising your hand for an intent speech.
Wise DPRK, may I address the floor?
That is your right. Delegate, your 2 minutes.
Fellow delegates, I believe that this resolution has great intent behind it, and I believe the situation faced by Honduras is a dire situation that would need to be resolved. However, I would like to quickly express concerns with some of the things in this resolution's operative clause. Specifically, they are asking for 10,000 volunteers for a volunteer workforce to recruit, capacitate, and certify family youth counselors to attend the mental, emotional, and physical needs of our youth. That idea is, to me, a little bit unrealistic. That is a lot of work for those 10,000 volunteers, and without any sort of incentive outside of just the volunteering, I feel it's going to be incredibly difficult to garner 10,000 volunteers to do that. I feel that there needs to be some sort of incentive for these volunteers instead of just working for free. There needs to be at least some sort of payment for these volunteers. And secondly, I suppose I'm a little bit confused on asking for a loan from the World Bank with a 0% interest rate, considering how inflation is occurring across the world on a yearly basis. And if we're going to get a loan for 16 years at a 0% interest rate, I also feel that that is slightly unrealistic, as this amount that they're asking for now might be worth more or less in the future, depending on how long it takes them to pay it back. I yield my time to the chair.
And with that, the delegate has yielded 37 seconds to the chair. We will now move into the first con round. Do we have any con speakers? McCaddy, Tuvalu.
McAtee, Tuvalu, do the delegates yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
May I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
Please specify a delegate.
Netherlands. So in your resolution, you stated that you are requesting 10,000 volunteers. What qualifications will these volunteers be expected to have?
Very good question. I'm glad you spoke about this. So they'll have to have any experience and proficiency in pedagogy, so in the study of youths, any, not exactly that they have had to work with gang related youths in the past, but definitely that they have a basic understanding of the problem. And taking advantage of this, I'd also like to say that an incentive with this is that it would look very well on the resume.
So you stated that at least 83 teachers were brutally murdered, how will you, why will these volunteers want to put themselves in a situation where they could also become targets of violence?
I'm glad you asked that as well. They're not going to be in the schools.
I'm sorry, delegate, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now move into our first pro round. Do we have a pro speaker? Meta San Marino.
Do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please specify delegate.
Gig me. So what % of children are in gangs currently in Honduras?
Give me 1 second. I believe it is upward. We don't have a percentage, but we do have a number. And I believe last time that we had that number, it was somewhere around 11,000.
And so would providing the money and financial resources to build these schools and keep the students safe, will that decrease the children off of out of gang violence into schools and education?
Definitely. And most especially when we're integrating the community and the family into this. So it'll be a much easier process.
How will you manage to keep the students and teachers safe due to extreme gang violence?
So this ties back to where this is going to be taught. It's going to be taught in the departmental centers. So these courses will be taught in a departmental center close to where all of the social services of the government are working.
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed. We'll now move into our second con round. Do we have any con speakers? Wolfkill, Guatemala.
Wolfkill, Guatemala, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please specify delegate.
Russell, Sudan. So referencing lines 22 and 23 of your resolution, could you explain the success that the GREAT program achieved in Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula?
So the success that they had, while I will say that the program did not have as much success in the entire country as we would have wanted to, the success was that we saw a drop of minors going into gang-related activity. So the idea there is great. The problem is the implementation of it in rural sectors and getting that information, that education, especially into rural schools.
Thank you, and I yield my time to the delegate.
One of the leading causes of gang violence and
Sorry, delegate, you are out of order and we are also out of time for this round. Before we move to the first pro round, I would like to entertain the motion that's on the floor. Delegate, please rise to your motion.
Kusamanchi, South Sudan, motion to extend pro-con debate by 1 round.
That motion is in order. We will now move to, do we have a second? Sorry.
Second.
We will now move to voting procedure. Just do yes or no, and we'll see. I'll give you like 5 seconds. Three, 2, 1. With a vote of 18 to 14, that motion does pass. We'll now extend pro-con debate by 1 round. So we will move on to our next pro round. Do I have any pro speakers? Cherry Poulet, Germany.
Cherry Poulet, Germany, did the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
Why is Project GREAT insufficient and how is your resolution different?
I'm very glad you asked that. And it is exactly what we spoke of about last time. It is the fact that it's not addressing all rural areas. And most importantly, it's that it's bringing in armed officials into schools, which is something that cannot happen. There was actually a study made in the United States, and it proves that the more you have a violent force teaching gang-related or anti-gang involvement education courses, the more you're going to have the counter effect. And instead of it going down, children are going to go more into organized crime. Our resolution, however, is bringing in non-armed newly trained youth counselors by an entire standard that all of Central America has ratified, and this is how it's going to be different and better.
Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time.
And with that, the delegate has yielded 9 seconds to the chair. We'll now move to a con round. Do we have any con speakers? Oh, Russell Sudan.
Russell Sudan, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
One of the leading causes of gang violence and participation in the informal economy is unemployment, motivating people to engage in gang activity for money. How does this resolution address the underlying poverty problem of underemployment and unemployment?
Excuse me, delegate, that was a question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Last part was. Would you
Okay.
like me to rephrase?
No, it's perfectly fine. I just wanted to know if it was a question or not. Thank you. It was my bad. Good question. Very good question. And it has to do with education. We can try to attack employment, but as long as the school is seen as somewhere unsafe, I doubt anybody's going to go to school. So we have to make sure that schools are safe first. That way we can move on to unemployment. Thank you for your question. Very important.
I'm sorry, delegates. Time for this round has elapsed.
Just to add on.
I'm sorry, time has ended. So we'll move on to our final pro round. Do we have any pro speakers? Acker, Yemen.
Acker, Yemen, may I address the floor?
Yes, you may.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
Please specify a delegate.
Gigme at Central African Republic. Okay, a few things to start off. Gang violence, especially in countries that cannot help themselves, is absolutely unacceptable. It's just not good. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for the people, not good for the country. It's not good for almost anything. The people that live there are going through some miserable things. This resolution helps them out. I mean, the only con that I see here is just that it's not very specific. It is specific. It's just like the nonviolent stuff. It doesn't really protect those, but it's still like this is a resolution to help the children and the people that need the help. And I just don't understand how you can con this. And I really urge the passing of this resolution. I yield my time.
Jigme, Central African Republic, may I address the floor?
Yes, delegate, you have 16 seconds.
Okay, so previous content speaker talked about the 0% interest rate. It is quite common for the World Bank to give out 0% interest rates for humanitarian projects like this. They've done it many times in the past. And education and safety in education is a human right. I strongly urge passage. Thus, I yield time to the chair.
And with that, we'll move on to our final con round. Do we have any con speakers? Kaplan, DPRK. Oh, sorry, do we have a motion? Alino, Bahamas.
Bahamas, point of order, did we not extend pro-con debate by one round?
Yes, we did. We just did our extended pro round.
Oh, my bad.
This is our extended con round. Okay, Kaplan, yes.
Kaplan, DPRK, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And if any time remains, may I yield any remaining time to Delegate Poland?
Yes.
Within the one-year timeline, what if certain conditions, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic conditions, worsen? Are there certain safety measures for the volunteers?
Yes. Part of the living expenses includes an addition of healthcare. I'm so sorry if we did not include it, but it should be. It falls under clothing, toiletries, and other personal items. That includes healthcare, and that will be paid for through this budget as well. Very good question. Thank you.
Thank you. You're placing these volunteers in high risk areas for violence, correct?
Could you repeat the question, please?
You're placing these volunteers within areas that have high risk for violence, correct?
Not necessarily. And it goes back to the exact geographic location. It's going to be in a place where it's public, where the authorities are right next to it. So it's going to be very safe.
What if at a point there is
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed and we'll now move into 1 minute and 41 seconds of the patron summation. Patrons, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Our country's streets run red with the blood of her own children. How much longer can we stand and tolerate such a calamity? How many more children must be seduced into organized crime or brutally murdered by it until we realize that enough is enough? We plead you not as mere representatives of our country, but as a humble citizen whose family is still trapped in sectors dominated by organized crime. We urge you to take into consideration the devastating consequences of this resolution failing. Think of the countless lives that could have been saved, the tears of thousands of mothers that would not have been shed, and more importantly, the future of an entire nation that could have been changed for the betterment of our world. It's time, Central America, to rise and make up a statement. Organized crime, nuestros hijos no son tuyos. Violence, nuestros hijos no son tuyos. And most importantly, fear, nuestros hijos no son y jamás serán tuyos. You cannot and will not have our children. Hermanos Centroamericanos, it's time for change in our region. We urge passing of a resolution and yield our time to the chair.
Thank you, delegates. And with that, 27 seconds have been yielded to the chair. We will now move into voting procedure. So yeah, cast your votes and I will count them in about 10 seconds. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, with a vote of 28-4, 28-4 and 28-4 and 4 against, this resolution does pass.
We will now move into our 5th summit resolution. Would the patrons of resolution 4-4 please prepare themselves? You are recognized for 2 minutes and may begin whenever you're ready.
Across all of Europe, 32% of all human trafficking victims originate from the Balkans, making the Balkan route a notorious location for human traffickers to thrive. Traffickers prey on people with very little education or very low financial standing, enticing them with promises to help them reach Western European countries and improve their standard of living. Regrettably, however, many are unknowingly forced into human trafficking schemes. The number of victims has not decreased, and traffickers are rarely held accountable. In order to combat this issue, we are requesting $60 million separated as listed for safe housing and basic living expenses, education, medical care and rehabilitation, legal access, job training, and the reinstatement of human trafficking victims in the Balkan region. With the funding to build safe houses, victims will be accommodated and receive healthcare, legal support, and adequate education. Then victims will be able to use this knowledge for future employment and recovery.
Funding towards legal access will also help hold traffickers accountable and prevent victims from being convicted as the perpetrators of this horrible crime. Additionally, with cooperation from non-governmental and intergovernmental organizations aimed at stopping human trafficking, such as La Strada International and the OSCE, Balkan countries can utilize the funds to promote job creation, job training, and education in impoverished areas. Over time, we are confident that vulnerable groups will be skilled enough to find proper, well-paying jobs in their home countries and will be able to avoid trafficking schemes and escape poverty. Overall, preventing human trafficking and preventing victims requires cooperation among organizations and countries. We are confident that this anti-trafficking measure will offer people in the Balkan region an escape from the cycle of poverty, abuse, and exploitation. We hereby declare that this shall go into effect July 30th, 2022, the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. We yield the remaining of our time to patron summation.
And with that, the patrons have yielded 14 seconds to their summation. We will now move into 2 minutes of technical questions. Are there any technical questions on the floor? Wolfkill, Kusumanchi, Kaplan, Holstelter, Sheehy, Kramer, and more as time allows.
Wolfkill, Guatemala. Which demographic is most trafficked in Macedonia, men, women, or children?
Women are the most trafficked group in Macedonia. Macedonia?
Kusamanchi, South Sudan. How many people have been affected by trafficking in Macedonia?
In 2002, there was approximately 535 victims, and there were 12 identified in 2010 and 15 in 2008.
Kaplan, DPRK, approximately how many victims can the $15 million allocated towards housing reach?
Because so few victims are discovered each year, the $15 million will provide approximately 5 to 10 safe houses per country, each accommodating 10 to 20 victims.
Hostetler Poland, define vulnerable people as used in line 31.
Vulnerable people are typically suffering from low financial standing or low education, meaning that they cannot attain jobs which pay a livable wage.
Shehi, the Netherlands, is the $60 million that you're asking for going to be a one-time payment?
It appears that they're having
Yes, this will be a one-time payment.
Kramer, Malta, how many people leave your country each year?
There are approximately 200 trafficked into the Balkan regions, but we don't have the exact number of people that leave our country each year.
Hill, if you would like to go.
My Hill, Panama, my question's already been answered. Sorry.
That's all right. Time for the technical questions round has now elapsed. We'll move into our intent speeches. Are there any volunteers for a con speech on the floor? Rwanda. You are recognized for 2 minutes.
Hular Rwanda may address the floor.
That is your right.
Fellow delegates, I'd like to acknowledge the benefits of stopping human trafficking and requesting upwards of $60 million, which impacts not only Northern Macedonia and neighboring Balkan countries, yet it fails to create an impact for the overall country. This impact directly affects the northern region of Macedonia, while over 600,000 people in Macedonia are in poverty and spread throughout the region of the country. Noting that Macedonia's population is only 2 million people, this issue must be addressed over human trafficking, and Macedonia is not even on the top 10 countries facing human trafficking. The solution requests for only $5 million to provide jobs as stated in line 59 of the patrons' resolutions. Delegates, I urge failure of this bill because it does not solve Macedonia's immediate needs, and furthermore, Macedonia has taken steps against human trafficking. Currently, Macedonia has Articles 418A and D of the Criminal Code, which has increased criminalized sex trafficking and labor laws against criminalized sex trafficking and labor trafficking, and now of a penalty of 14 years imprisonment, which has major impacts against self-trafficking. Macedonia has also upheld actions against sex trafficking and used the Combating Trafficking in Human Beings and Migrant Smuggling Unit Anti-Trafficking Task Force within the Ministry of Interior, MOI, led with specialized investigators. There is no need for the United Nations, as Macedonia has already utilized their government to solve this issue, and this bill should be rejected. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
And we will now move into our pro-intent speech. Could our pro-intent speaker please come forward? Schaefer. Okay, yes. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
Schaefer Tuvalu, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
My fellow delegates, human trafficking threatens the right of all victims involved by stripping them of their freedom and right to life. These human rights must be protected by the UN as described in its founding charter, so I greatly urge the passage of this resolution. The patrons' request of 60 million USD is well within the UN's budget and will be spread throughout several nations in the Balkans, thus benefiting thousands of victims throughout the region. A large portion of these victims are women and young children who are most often sexually exploited. By refusing to address human trafficking, provide necessary support to victims, and develop sufficient infrastructure to punish perpetrators and any persons involved in human trafficking, we are allowing victims to continue to be raped, abused, and exploited, while many of us look the other way. Women all across the world face the threat of rape or sexual exploitation, and this threat only worsens as these women and even children become increasingly more vulnerable. Are we going to sit by and allow these women and children, some of whom are the same age as ourselves and our sisters, to be sexually exploited? Are we going to allow people to be forced into harsh labor and abused? Are we going to allow the perpetrators of human trafficking to run free? While many of us are privileged enough to live in an environment where the threat of human trafficking is non-existent, vulnerable people in the Balkans and all over the world live under this threat every day. We must take action to end human trafficking so that the perpetrators will be punished and victims and other vulnerable persons may be at peace. This resolution not only calls further attention to human trafficking, but it also creates the necessary infrastructure and rehabilitation for victims in the Balkans and encourages governments elsewhere to do the same. These actions will set us in the right direction to ensure the end of the horrible crime of human trafficking. I greatly urge the passage of this resolution. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time to the patron summation.
And with that, 11 seconds have been yielded to the patron summation. We will now move into con-pro debate. Are there any con speakers on the floor? Pradeep.
Pradeep Thailand, may the patrons yield to a possible series of questions.
They do so yield.
May I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please select a delegate.
Ms. Rwanda. All right, so in your line, how many for the 15 million you're asking for housing and basic living incentives, how many actual housing units are you building?
Depending on the need of each country, we are planning on building approximately 5 to 10 housing units per country within the Balkan region.
And how many people can each of these housing units accommodate for?
10 to 20 people.
So in total, you're going to be helping so wait, how many people are actually going to be helped by this bill?
Any and all victims that are found from human trafficking.
Okay, I now yield the remainder of my time.
Ms. Rwanda may address the floor.
That is your right. You have 20 seconds.
Okay. Fellow delegates, I believe that this bill or resolution, should not pass. And let me explain why. First off, let's go into the resolution, specifically in lines 55 to 60, where they describe how they will allocate money. First off, this money is unnecessary because Macedonia, or specifically Northern Macedonia, is already implementing solutions to combat the trafficking.
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has now elapsed. We will move into our first pro speaker. Is there a pro speaker on the floor? Equatorial Guinea.
Dish, Equatorial Guinea, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please select a delegate.
Honduras. So I would like to address something that the content speaker said. I believe that they said that since this country isn't in the top 10 worst areas of sex trafficking in the world, it wouldn't be very effective. But to that, I would like to say that other countries in Baltic areas around this country are in fact in the worst sex trafficking areas in the world. So this wouldn't just affect the country in question, it would also affect other areas in this general section of the world. So it would take down areas of trafficking, not only here, but in other areas too. So it would in fact help thousands and thousands of women who have been deprived of their rights. I yield my time.
De Sorellana, Honduras, the patrons yield to a possible series of questions.
They do so yield. You have 13 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So very quickly, what is the main way in which these slave traders trap their victims, and how would your plan counter that?
They entice them with promises of better
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed. We will move into our second con speech. Is there a con speaker on the floor? McNulty. Oh, before that, I see there's a motion on the floor. Please state your motion.
Wolfkill, Guatemala, motion to extend pro-con debate by 1 round.
Second.
Yes, that motion is in order and there's a second. We will now vote on that motion. So I'll give you all a couple seconds. In 5 seconds, I will take the final count. 3, 2, 1. With a vote of 17 in favor, 6 against. We will have an extra con pro round. So now we'll move into our pro speaker with McNulty.
Oh, was this a pro round?
I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a con round.
Yeah.
Yes, con round. So sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, con round.
McNulty, Ecuador, may I address the floor and yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
Those are both your rights. Please select a delegate.
Salman, or I think they put their hand down, Misra. So fellow delegates, I'm going to make an analogy with this resolution. The country of Northern Macedonia has a large issue. It has an illness. It's sick. And when you're sick, you want to take a medicine that is going to get rid of your sickness. But this resolution is providing something that's just going to mask the symptoms. For example, it seems like providing housing, education, and other things that will bring people out of poverty is going to get the root of the problem. But these resources are being provided to people after they're already victims of human trafficking. While it is important to serve people who have already been victims, it is even more important to get to the root of the problem and serve people before they are human trafficked. While I believe that this resolution is amazing, everyone loves their good dose of Tylenol when they're feeling sick. I think this country needs some antibiotics. I believe that this resolution proposes some good ideas, but maybe we need to expand it because human trafficking is a large issue. It's multiple countries. And like someone said, 60 million is well within the UN's budget. We can afford to do more. And I feel like a more comprehensive plan would.
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed. We will move into our second to last pro round. Is there a pro speaker on the floor? Russell.
Russell, Sudan, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions? And may I yield time to a fellow delegate?
They do so yield, and that is your right. Please select a delegate.
Wolfkill, Guatemala. Are a significant number of victims tourists?
A significant portion of the victims are migrants that are going through.
Okay. Have you seen the tourism industry be negatively affected by the sex trafficking issue?
Not particularly. It affects
I urge low ranking and yield my time to a fellow delegate.
Kill, Guatemala, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 20 seconds.
Delegates, human trafficking is a problem in North Macedonia, and that's all that needs to be said. It shouldn't matter that it is in the top 10 most trafficked countries. It's a problem, and there are women and children today who are suffering. And in the future, we can work on more solutions, but right now,
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed. We'll move into our second to last con round. Is there a con speaker on the floor? Olino.
Olino, Bahamas, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is your right. Please select a delegate.
Misra. Patrons, how many human trafficking victims are in the Balkans? Or would this affect in the Balkans? Hello?
Well, 30% of all human trafficking victims pass through the Balkan region, so we are hoping to address 30% of all human trafficking victims.
How many people is that specifically?
Well, because human trafficking is an underground crime, it's very difficult to get an exact number, but we do know that 30% of human trafficking victims can be addressed in Macedonia and the Balkan region.
And roughly 200,000 are trafficked annually into the Balkan region and 400,000 through the Balkans.
Did you say 400,000 to the Balkans roughly?
Through the Balkans, yes.
Yep, okay. That is less than $200 per victim that you're spending on this. Does that make sense for all the things that you claim to be providing for them?
Well, not every single victim.
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed. We will move into our final pro round. Is there a pro speaker on the floor? Salman, Pakistan.
Salman, Pakistan, do the delegates yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
Okay. As the prior delegate stated, with an interesting analogy, which countries have previously solved human trafficking, and how would it even be possible to attack the root of the problem successfully? I don't know. It kind of sounds like it's better said than done, don't you think, delegates?
Well, trafficking as a domestic issue is obviously not our solution because trafficking doesn't just impact North Macedonia, and we are addressing the root cause by promoting education within the Balkans. Because when more people have access to and can attain a livable wage by getting a job, they can escape the cycle of poverty, which in turn will lead them to avoid these trafficking.
And generally speaking, trying to eradicate human trafficking in one swoop is next to impossible, but we are taking measures to slowly prevent human trafficking.
And Bosnia and Herzegovina, a fellow Balkan country, according to a study done by the Borgen Project, has the greatest human trafficking problem out of all the Balkan sovereign states, yet it has the third lowest population. So then why are you guys providing money based on population instead of...
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has elapsed. We'll move into our final con round. Is there a con speaker on the floor? Sathya, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, from Rwanda.
Satyendra Kumar Rwanda. May I address the floor and yield the rest of my time to a fellow delegate?
Those are both your rights. Please select a delegate.
Kusumanji, South Sudan. Fellow delegates, I urge you not to pass this resolution. As stated in the content speech, there are more severe problems that are prevalent in the former Yugoslavic Republic. With an extremely high poverty rate, it is becoming imperative that poverty is solved first. The United Nations is simply wasting its money on this resolution. Additionally, even if you believe that this solution is necessary, the chances of becoming a victim of either violent or property crime in Macedonia is 1 in 46. Based on FBI crime data, Macedonia is not one of the safest communities. Relative to Ohio, Macedonia has a crime rate that is higher than 82%. The solution is already being solved in Macedonia anyways. The Council of Europe's anti-trafficking expert group has already called on authorities to do more to lower human trafficking risk. With this motivation, there has already been additional protection put in place. I yield the rest of my time.
Kusumanji, South Sudan, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so. Yield you have 15 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Has a solution like this been implemented anywhere before? And if so, what's different about this solution than the previous one? And would it be affecting any other surrounding countries in the Balkan Peninsula?
I'm sorry, delegates, time for this round has now elapsed. We will move into a minute and 25 seconds of the patron's summation. You may begin when ready.
So the first point I would like to address is that our resolution does not address the root cause, but our resolution includes protection for victims and does potentially prevent people from actually falling victim by focusing on education and other resources. And additionally, our government has made significant, including convicting more significant sentences, but government did not meet the minimum standards in several areas. For example, the government diverted funding for victim protection, which jeopardized the victim identity. And there was not sufficient funding for legal access, which meant that traffickers were not convicted and their victims did not have justice.
Furthermore, to address the economic aspect, a similar action has been taken in the United States, and it showed incredible success, and we are hoping to re-implement that in the Balkan region. And furthermore, a fellow delegate stated that the $5 million for job training isn't enough. I would like to remind our fellow delegates that there's free public education in Macedonia, and the $5 million is for specialized job training, and the $15 million money for education is for specialized education and job training as well. So that doesn't account for the free education that's available in Macedonia.
I'm sorry, patrons, time for the summation has elapsed. We will now move into voting procedure. You can vote now, and then I'll give you a couple seconds to get those in. Make sure all of your votes are in, because I'm gonna mark down the tallies in 3 seconds. So 3, 2, 1, and that is with a vote of 13 in favor, 20 opposed, and 1 abstention. This resolution does not pass.
All right. Thank you for everybody staying focused. We have one more resolution to get through. This is going to be 21-2-6, the delegation of Benin, a resolution to prevent land degradation and increase arable land.
May we start?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
A man and woman have lost their fourth of 13 children due to starvation. Why? The parents cannot feed their children. Hardly standing, the mother wonders what must she do to obtain food, since the family fields have dried up and no food is in their cupboard. They walk for food, they walk for water. Starving, dehydrated, poverty-ridden, disease-infected, and with no wonder in the world how they will survive. They hope for help. Your help is what we, the Republic of Benin, ask, so that not even one more family will ever experience what tens of thousands of families like this family have been crushed by, in which our whole country will be soon faced with if action is not taken. We, the delegates of the Republic of Benin, ask you for assistance in solving this dire problem facing our nation. We urge passage and yield our time to summation.
With that, the delegates have yielded 1 minute and 3 seconds to their summation. We'll now be going into technical questions. Salman, Sathya, Kilaru, Misra, Kaplan, Pradeep, Molino, Metha, Jordan, Russell.
Salman, Pakistan, how specifically did you guys calculate the $180 million that you were asking for, and what area are you guys going to be specifically focusing on?
So for the specifics of the money, that's better addressed in pro-con debate, but for the area affected, we're going to be focusing on the northern parts of Adakora and Alabori, who are most likely going to be attacked by desertification sooner than the other parts of the country.
Satyandre Kumar, Rwanda, what is the major industry in Benin?
As stated in our resolution, it's mainly cotton and agricultural exports. It should say agricultural exports. It says subsistence farming currently.
Thank you.
Russell, Sudan, how much arable land has been lost in the past decade in Benin?
The arable land lost is around 17% of the land that we had presently that was considered arable at first.
Kaplan, DPRK, are there any other countries that are interested in a similar model of drip irrigation? And if so, may you specify which?
Specifically, not that I'm aware of. However, with the passing of this resolution, countries such as Burkina Faso and Niger would be interested in applying this solution.
Pradeep, Thailand, what percentage of your GDP comes from the sale of cotton and other agricultural exports?
Around 68%.
Alvino, Bahamas. Are there any projects other than drip irrigation that you plan to spend this money on?
Currently, no, all of this money is going to be going to the use of drip irrigation, excuse me.
Unfortunately, delegates, the time for technical questions has elapsed. I will now entertain the con intent speech.
Nakati Tuvalu, may I address the floor?
That is your right. Delegate, you have 2 minutes.
Fellow delegates, I urge you not to pass this resolution. Land degradation is absolutely an important issue, but there are several problems with this resolution that prevent it from being the solution that is needed. First, consider the financial aspects of the resolution. Drip irrigation systems are much more expensive than other irrigation systems, costing approximately $2,150 per acre to install. Given that the UN has extremely limited financial resources and 167 other countries worldwide are also impacted by land degradation, spending 180 million United States dollars on just one country's irrigation is not financially feasible. Yet another problem is corruption. Benin has been described as having very high corruption, with public funds frequently being diverted. There is no guarantee that the $180 million of UN funding will actually go towards improving the situation. Second, beyond the financial problems with this resolution, irrigating degraded land is a band-aid solution. The United Nations should focus on addressing the root cause of degraded and desertified land, such as climate change, erosion, and detrimental agricultural practices like overgrazing, or the United Nations will constantly be scurrying to irrigate more and more land, a losing race that will be expensive and ultimately fail. The UN should focus on the root cause. Third, to the extent that adaptation is needed, solutions are already being implemented. As just one example, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification has several programs in place to address this issue, including the Land Degradation Neutrality Fund, which provides more than $100 million of funding that are being provided to countries to combat land degradation. This fund will eventually distribute more than $300 million. There are currently projects specific to Benin as well, such as the Combating Adverse Effects of Climate Change on Agricultural Production and Food Security in Benin project, which is sponsoring research into agricultural practices and crop varieties that are more resilient to adverse environmental conditions like land degradation. In conclusion, this resolution is financially unsustainable and fails to either address the root cause or add new value beyond existing adaptation programs. Fellow delegates, while this issue is important, I urge you not to pass this resolution and yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
With that, the delegate has yielded 6 seconds to the chair. I will now entertain the pro intent speech.
Mohammed, Central African Republic, may I address the floor?
That is your right. Delegate, you are entitled to 2 minutes.
Okay. Fellow delegates, we often think about the environmental crisis as climate change, global warming, pollution, and fossil fuels. But one of the most overlooked issues is the soil. There are so many microorganisms within the soil, and a research estimated by Columbia University says that there are over 5,000 pounds of microorganisms present in one healthy acre. All these microorganisms are dying due to poor agricultural practices. Fertilizers are only being used due to all these microorganisms dying, which results in an imbalance of chemicals, which leads to runoff, pollution, and erosion, and this cycle just repeats. The UN FAO states that 33% of the soil around the whole world has already been degraded, and this is in 2017, so there's much more now. There's literally no other issue that can be so more global than our own land that we're standing on right now. And if you don't think this is enough global impact, let me tell you this. Soil holds more carbon than all the plant biomass and forests combined. And this is supported by a study by Stanford and the USDA. Soil degradation releases all these carbon back into the atmosphere, which then contributes to global warming. Erosion is very costly and will continue to be a problem if we don't take action. To put into perspective, the US has $44 billion worth of damage just because of erosion. And we aren't going to be stopping agriculture anytime soon. So this is a serious problem. And we need to get to the root of the problem. Drip irrigation is actually a very efficient system that will save the most water. By saving water and not watering in excess in the fields, we are preventing soil salinization, which then leads to soil degradation. Drip irrigation is a step in rejuvenating the soil because soil salinization is the world's most serious soil degradation problem. It kills the soil. And by saying better farming practices, this is the better farming practice. This is the step that we need to take. It is not a band-aid in the big problem. It is a critical step. and it'll save much more water and expenses. What money will we have if we don't have the environment? And this has already worked in so many other countries. The system can last 20+ years, and it's more efficient than center pivot irrigation system, which are known to be the most efficient irrigation system, because farms in Benin are subsistence farms, which are small 1 to 3 acre farms. Center pivot irrigation works in 100-acre farms, and we don't have that in Benin. And I urge and I argue that this is the most serious cause of climate change. There's nothing more serious than soil degradation at this time. In the end, it only affects us through diseases, starvation, pollution. So we need to be proactive against this problem. Therefore, I strongly urge the passage of this resolution.
With that, the delegate has yielded 1 second to the chair. We'll now be going into pro-con debate. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Teles Juliana.
Teles Oriana, Honduras. Did the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify, delegate.
Kilaru, Rwanda. So I just want to emphasize that I am neutral on this stance. I think it's a very good idea. I just have a few concerns regarding combating pollutants and diseases of food through your system. How exactly do you think will this have an effect? I'm sorry, I'm not phrasing myself well. How big of an effect will this have from changing from one system of irrigation to another?
We're not necessarily switching from one, we're implementing this other technique, which will, with both of them combined, it'll it'll boost the efficiency of our countering of these pesticides, things that are harming our soil.
Thank you. And do you plan to implement other systems as well, in addition to this one, in the future?
In the future, depends on how well this resolution works. We plan to not have to, due to the efficiency of this resolution, and hopefully other countries will follow suit, recognize that this solution is the best one. So no, presently we don't need
Unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now be going into our first pro round. I have a pro speaker on the floor. Salman.
Salman, Pakistan, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
As the delegate McCaddy mentioned previously, if people are dying from hunger, and this is the only solution to this issue, why would we ignore the loss of lives, regardless if this solution is perfect or not? Though I think this is the only possible solution after all. Not every solution can be perfect, and when the lives of people are involved, if people's lives are getting saved, an imperfect solution becomes the perfect solution. 10 million people, that's a lot of people who could possibly die of hunger based on this issue. If this bill is implemented correctly, it will show good results. It does, other countries will also implement it too, saving the lives of not 10 million, but way more. This is what the UN was formed to solve, and this is what I, as a representative of Pakistan serving in the UN Assembly, am inclined to support. With this resolution, lives are objectively being saved, and the UN cannot pass up on an opportunity like this. This is a well-used notion of the UN's budget. The only reason to con this bill would be because of their means of going about how they approach this problem. Could be done in a more efficient way. As I've said previously regarding Niger's resolution, and for the same reason why the resolution failed, efficiency in the UN is key. And as I've observed in this bill, their approach is impeccable and extremely efficient. In addition, several other countries around Benin are going through similar problems. If this bill proves to be effective, which I truly know it will, if this bill proves to save the lives of millions, which I also firmly believe it will, Benin can serve as a role model to many. And I would like to add that if you listen to my fellow delegate Mohammed's intense speech, the delegation of Benin is approaching this issue at the perfect angle. As of that, I urge passage and yield my time to the chair.
With that, the delegate has yielded 1 second to the chair. Wise, I see you have a motion on the floor.
Motion to extend pro-con debate by 1 round.
That motion is in order. Is there a second?
I second that.
With this proper second, we'll now be going into voting procedure. Press yes or no. On 3, I will be tallying up the votes. 1, 2, 3. With a vote of 23 for, 9 against, this motion does pass, and we will be extending pro-con debate by 1 round. We'll now be going into our second con round. Do I have any con speakers on the floor? Kilaru.
Rwanda, do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
May I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate.
That is also your right. Please specify, delegate.
Misra. So let's start off. Do you think your population is the major issue?
Can you explain what do you mean by
Is it because of your high population? It's hurting is it significantly damaging the land?
No,
What is the major reason?
our farming practices are well developed, are underdeveloped, and we're trying to redevelop them with drip irrigation.
as well as the spread of desertification from the Sahara Desert?
This is due because you have to feed a large population, right?
Yes.
Partly.
So why don't you first start off by solving the overpopulation or the high population by implementing birth controls?
How would you want us to solve high population?
You can implement birth control policies along with implementing like what other countries like India supporting family planning instead of just directly helping the agriculture.
We don't want to intrude on people's rights in our country. I'm sorry.
And
You're
also,
not intruding on people's rights. You're just providing a service, and this way you reduce the population, allowing to help with the
That would cause economic backlash. It'd be very bad.
Another major part is that we want to maintain our economy. Part of our economy is based off agricultural developments as well as substance farming. The substance farming and
Unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed, and to remind everyone, you cannot yield time to the same delegation as you. We'll now be moving on to our next pro round. Do I have a pro speaker on the floor? Wise.
Wise, DPRK, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
Thank you, Chair. Fellow delegates, I'm sure before you all arrived at the conference here today, you had at least one meal. And if not a meal today, you had a good meal yesterday or the day before that. As you listen to your fellow delegates give their fantastic speeches, I'm fairly certain that one of your primary concerns at any given moment is not, how am I going to feed myself and my family today? Unfortunately, for the vast majority of the people in Benin, they have that concern at the forefront of their minds at every second of the day. As mentioned in lines 17 and 19 of the delegates' resolution and also by the World Food Program, Benin is suffering from the combined effects of desertification and climate change, meaning the farmland in Benin is barely yielding enough crops to survive. This has led to 32% of young children in Benin suffering from chronic malnutrition, meaning these young children have permanent damage to their cognitive development and suffer from reduced body growth. This has also led to 9.6% of Benin's population suffering from food insecurity. Should we sit idly and comfortably enjoying our own meals while the people of Benin are desperately trying to survive? Or should we pass a comprehensive and incredibly beneficial resolution that will guarantee a better tomorrow for the people of Benin and approach this issue from the right angle? We must pass this resolution to ensure the people of Benin gain access to a proper quality and quantity of crops to survive. The drip irrigation proposed by the delegation of Benin has proven incredibly successful globally and will help stop the food insecurity faced by the people of Benin. Lastly, this can serve as a model for other countries to use, whether it be neighboring countries in Africa.
Unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now be moving into our next con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Meta.
Do the patrons yield to a possible series of questions?
Delegate, you are out of order.
Oh, sorry. Meta San Marino, do the delegates, may the delegates yield to a possible series of questions?
They do so yield.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify, delegate.
Wolfkill, just to clarify, is your funds, referencing line 26, asking for funds in order to counter land degradation through drip irrigation? Is that including the 180 million or is that an extra?
Are you asking, is the 180 million directly for the drip irrigation or is that extra to have it installed?
No, is it encompassing the 180 million or is that a separate part?
Oh, in line 26. Yes, that is the 180 million is those funds, excuse me.
And so other countries are also experiencing such desertification issues. And so given that the budget for 2020 was 6.58 billion, what will other countries gain from this implementation of such, even though it's such a high cost?
First of all, the high cost, the financial issues, we plan to incorporate this plan now. And as it develops, as it shows success, more countries, specifically Niger, Burkina Faso, who are facing.
Unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed. Before we move into our next pro round, would anybody want a motion to extend pro-con debate again, since it is a lot of hands going up? Motion from Kaplan.
Motion to extend pro-con debate by 1 round.
That motion is in order. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
With that, we'll now be going into voting procedures. One, two, three. With a tally of 25-4-7 against, this motion does pass. We'll be extending pro-con debate by another 1 round. We'll now be moving on to our second final pro round. Sathya.
Satyandre Kumar, Rwanda. May I address the floor and yield the rest of my time to a fellow delegate?
Since those are your right, please specify delegate.
McNulty. Fellow delegates, I urge you to pass this resolution. The most underlooked part of farming is the importance of soil. Without proper soil, it is not possible for food to be farmed properly. This correlates to extreme starvation, approximately 10 million people just in Benin. This is a much bigger statistic worldwide. The United States Geological Survey additionally states that drip irrigation is a very efficient way to irrigate crops and effectively combat climate change, starvation, and other numerous issues. Drip irrigation is one of the most advanced technologies being used today and is sure to provide beneficial consequences. As the previous delegates, Mohammed from the Central African Republic and Salman from Pakistan pointed out, the country of Benin is approaching this problem from exactly the right angle. This is the exact type of solution that we as the delegates in the United Nations General Assembly are inclined to support. It is imperative that starvation and other problems are solved to ensure that the people of Benin have a successful future. Thank you, and I yield the rest of my time.
McNulty, Ecuador, may I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 8 seconds.
This resolution provides a solution that will last for 20 years. These 20 years will allow the farmers to generate more revenue so that they can use that for the future after those 20 years are up. So even though the UN funds will create a 20-year solution, that 20-year solution will be a catalyst for a further solution that will.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time for this round. We'll now be going to our second to last con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor? Sidyar, sorry, I mispronounced that.
It's fine. Sadiq Yar Kiribas, may I address the floor?
That is your right.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify delegate.
I only know. All right. So I'll start now. So one of the delegates in the past talked about how an imperfect solution is better than a no solution. But I'd say an imperfect solution is really bad if it can't actually work and the numbers in their resolution just straight up don't add up. They asked for $180 million for drip irrigation, but remember, this adds up to about $20,000 per square mile of arable land in Benin. However, for drip irrigation to be properly implemented, it takes about $2,000 per acre, or scaling up, $1.3 million per square mile, whereas they are just spending $20,000 per square mile. Basically, with their resolution, they're spending $20,000 per square mile to implement this drip irrigation, whereas for it to actually be implemented effectively, it costs $1.3 million per square mile. They're straight up over, they don't have the numbers right, and they're straight up underestimating how much money they'll actually need, which is why whenever you pass this resolution, drip irrigation actually won't be able to be implemented effectively, and it will have pretty much no effect on desertification in their country, which is why I urge you to not pass. I yield the remainder of my time.
Bahamas. The patrons yield to a possible series of questions.
Did so yield, delegate, you have 7 seconds.
Patrons, given that drip irrigation is primarily used to conserve water and prevent weed growth, how exactly is this going to prevent desertification in your country?
It's going to maximize the efficiency of our water and increase the potability.
So how does that affect the
The time
desertification
for
of
this
the
round
land?
has elapsed. We'll now be moving into our final pro round. Do I have a pro speaker on the floor? Akher, sorry about that. Aker,
Sorry, you went out right as you said my name. May I address, Aker Yemen, may I address the floor?
that is your right.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
It's also your right. Please specify delegate.
Mohammed, Central African Republic. So the delegates from this country say that this plan will work, and a lot of their economy is focused on this specific like agricultural idea. If you help this agricultural idea, it will bring the people to like a greater economy, and then the economy will be self-sustaining, meaning that they might not need as much money anymore because they have the money for themselves, and the UN will be able to help other countries around them with similar problems and implement a similar resolution. I yield the remainder of my time.
Mohammed, Central African Republic. May I address the floor?
That is your right. You have 28 seconds.
So a previous delegate said that desertification won't, how will desertification be stopped by drip irrigation? And that is because drip irrigation prevents soil salinization, which then leads to soil degradation. And that is the main cause of desertification. So this is actually a very efficient solution. Although the cost may be questionable, the part that matters is that the land will be saved. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter. The global impact is that the land will be saved and will prevent carbon from entering the atmosphere, which leads to global warming and climate change. Which
unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now be moving into our final con round. Do I have a con speaker on the floor?
Dish, Equatorial Guinea. May I address the floor?
That is your right.
And may I yield the remainder of my time to a fellow delegate?
That is also your right. Please specify, delegate.
Pradeep. Although this is a very important issue and something that is affecting many different countries in the African area, the numbers here just don't really add up. I believe that there are other solutions to this issue that could be more cost effective, but drip agriculture, just like the money for this, as a previous speaker said, just doesn't really make sense. And that is a really important factor in this. So unless they have their numbers correct, then I don't believe that this should be passed. I yield my time. Thank you.
Pradeep Dialyant, may the patrons yield a possible series of questions.
They do so, yield, delegate. You have 24 seconds.
So what exactly specific type of drip irrigation systems are you willing to implement?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
What specific type of drip irrigation system are you actually implementing?
Specifically, it's one similarly seen in Egypt, America, India, China. It's the one used there.
Which one was used there?
Commercial.
Commercial, okay. What are some benefits of using the commercial one over other systems?
Efficiency, and we can spread it.
Unfortunately, the time for this round has elapsed. We'll now be going into the patron summation. Patrons, you have 2 minutes and 3 seconds.
Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food and much more. Land degradation is a direct threat to this right, and left unchecked, the people of Benin and the country itself are put in danger of collapse. To counter several points brought up during our pro-con debates, the financial aspect, people are questioning our numbers. I want to clarify specifically that one, this resolution is focusing on the borders of our country that will most likely face the immediate threats of desertification. In addition, the cost of implementing this system is accounted for in the $180 million to address the corruption. What we were going to have, which we were unable to add in, is we're going to request UN super advisors to oversee the management of these funds to maintain and ensure that the money goes directly to the cause. A previous delegate addressing the fact that we aren't addressing the root cause. There are 189 countries working on global warming and trying to counter those causes. We might never know when the success of those research is going to come. So we're implementing the system which will work efficiently, which will be quickly instated to help our people. All right. So we've seen similar issues in other countries and the effects that it has on the country and its people. We've also seen the implementation of our solutions being used in many countries and seen success. I urge all of you, if any of you have any compassion for those less fortunate for yourselves, for those trying to maintain their way of living, to recognize the need of passing this resolution. We urge passage and yield our time to the chair.
With that, the delegates have yielded 3 seconds to the chair. Will now be going into voting procedures. On 3, I would like everybody to vote. 1, 2, 3. On 3, I will be tallying up the votes. 1, 2, 3. With a vote of 16 for, 22 against, and 1 abstention, this bill does fail.
Seeing as we have reached the conclusion of the Model UN 2021 Showcase docket, I have a couple of final announcements. First, I want to give some thank yous. One, to our Showcase chairs. All of your Showcase chairs have already served as officers for an entire Model UN conference already and have been generous enough to give back 3 hours of their Sunday in order to make this showcase happen. So please join me in appreciating them for all of their hard work. It really wouldn't have been possible without all of their efforts. So thank you to all of our showcase chairs. Next, I want to thank our resolution sponsors. It is no easy task to get up in front of a group like this, be it in person or over Zoom, full of brilliant members of your peers, and kind of advance your ideas and debate and learn. And it's a difficult task. So we really appreciate all the resolution sponsors for coming out and advancing ideas and letting us talk through them. Next, I want to thank all of the delegates. All of you have also been through an entire Model UN conference already and still found the idea of debating about ways to improve the world and society an enticing enough reason to come back and give 3 more hours of your Sunday. So we really appreciate all of you delegates for making this such a fantastic Model UN showcase and a fantastic Model UN season. I challenge anyone to watch the last 2.5 hours of debate here and not come away feeling optimistic about the future. It really is an incredible thing. And in case no one has told you, you all have been so generous with your time, effort, energy in advancing these ideas and talking through them with your peers. So we really, really appreciate you. With that being said, the CCE works with almost 6,000 students every year. And a big focus of ours is making sure that our conferences are accessible to students across the state, regardless of their background or ability to pay. As part of that, the CCE in a normal operating year gives out more than $100,000 in scholarships to make sure that all students, no matter what their situation is, have the opportunity to access their conferences and, quite honestly, access this incredible group of their peers. Because we believe those connections are so important. So if you want to contribute to that effort around this holiday season, I'm going to drop the donation link for our scholarship fund in the chat. And if you feel so moved and want to help make sure that we keep these conferences accessible, I encourage you to donate there. The other link I dropped in the chat is to our Center for Civic Engagement store. We still have a number of Model UN shirts available. They look like this. They say MUN World Tour on the back, and they have the dates that all the different all the different United Nations member states officially joined the UN. So it's a pretty cool shirt to have. We still have a limited number of all the sizes available on our website, and you can use that store link to order those. If you order them today, we'll get them shipped out this week, and they should arrive before Christmas. So great stocking stuffer. All that being said, thank you again for a wonderful showcase and a wonderful year, and I'll throw it over to our Associate Director, Elise Duggar.
Hi, everyone. One final thank you. We really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. This was fun and fabulous. We very rarely get to really listen to debate at the in-person conferences, so thank you for a wonderful Sunday, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you at YIG. Susan, your final thank you before we take a final motion.
Yes, well, thank you. Again, I echo everything that Elise and Tyler have said, but I do want to say, you know, when COVID hit and we had to transition to virtual, the showcase really was something that I think became a highlight for this, and to be able to get students or delegates that participated in the in-person as well as the delegates that did the virtual conference. It's just so fun. And as Elise said, at the in-person, we rarely get to hear the debate. This has been fascinating to me. You guys are brilliant, and I just applaud you for not only your speaking skills, but also just for the everything that you've put into these resolutions and this debate. As I said at the beginning, you know, we know the world is in good hands because of you all. And just thank you for all that you've done to make this possible, and to make this Model UN. You guys are it. This is our last Model UN of the season. So I will now pass this over to our chair, who will close us out with a motion.
Thank you all. And with that, we'll now move to entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Rwanda, please rise.
Ms. Rwanda, motion to adjourn.
That motion is in order. Do I have a second?
Second.
We will now vote based on vocal acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
In the ears of the chair, the ayes do have it. We will now adjourn the 2021 MUN Showcase.
Have a wonderful holiday season, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.